because it is the fourth Saturday of the month. You know it is. That means we're here. It's noon central. We're talking about the Learn Pro Poker strategy video that was released earlier this month. Every week we do a little study group here at noon central on Saturdays. Each week there's a different area of focus. One week it's the monthly seminar. One week it's the focus. One week it's my own group coaching session with Poker Tracker 4. And one week out of the month, we take a look at an extra feature length premium training video created by Ryan LaPlante and the fine folks at Learn Pro Poker that everyone at Rec Poker gets to enjoy as part of their premium membership. So this month, we're looking at about a 45-minute video that Andrew Feist put together, which is a Ryan versus Ryan heads up showdown. So in this one, Ryan LaPlante is going heads up with Ryan Lang, and LaPlante is sharing his thought process. He's just talking out loud, and it's all being captured by the cameras and the microphones. And Ryan Lang has his ears blocked, so he can't hear what's going on.
So,
So yeah, Eric.
sort of a play and explain almost.
Kind of like a play and explain. So that's a great segue. So we've tried this kind of thing before. Solve for Why does their poker out loud. Learn Pro Poker has these kind of situations where they're playing and talking out loud. And Eric is actually running our own group here, the Peel, as you can see from his background, the Play, Explain, and Learn. Why don't we just take a second, Eric? Why don't you just tell folks a bit about what is involved with that, and then we'll get back into the LPP video.
Yeah, so we play right now it's targeting a short-handed six max cash scenario where we have using the Poker Now platform, we have all the players, we can see each other, but we can't hear each other. But the recording will show everybody's whole cards exposed, and we'll record everybody's thoughts. So before an action, each player will explain their thought process, why they're doing what they're doing, and then act. And so it's interesting to see, people's thought process. And in the meantime, while you're doing it, it forces you to explain what you're doing and not just be clicking buttons. So it helps you learn and more define your thought process and hopefully become a better player and hone your strategy.
Yeah, it's really helpful as a player just to go through the process of having to put your thoughts into words and to I think it really helps you kind of analyze your own way of thinking about a hand in real time. But what's super cool is watching the video afterwards as an observer and then just being able to watch each player talk about their action as they go through the hand. It's just like a continuous run of recreational players like us talking about why they make the decisions they make. And that is just amazing as a learning tool, as a way to think about player tendencies, as a way to think about ways you yourself might be thinking about things differently. That's extremely valuable. So hats off to you, Eric, for putting that together. I can't wait to see as we get more and more people involved in that. It's awesome. And that's on Wednesday
I was
nights.
in, yeah, I was in the last one. It was really fun. And I didn't sound like as much of an idiot as I thought I would.
Yeah, I mean, it is funny because we mute each other, we're only talking ourselves. So we're like, does that sound good? But when you see it all together, it does flow nicely, and it's a good, fun video to watch.
Yeah. So we're doing that every week now on Wednesday nights. It's a late night for us on the East Coast, but for our West Coast friends, it's right in that after dinner hour, so that fits in perfectly. Um, it's just we like to learn together. We like to learn in community. So that's Eric's doing a great job leading us off with that. Um, and we're not the only ones to have this idea. This is what's happening at Learn Pro Poker. Like we said, it's just so valuable to be able to hear the thought process of professionals as they're in these same situations that we're in our Play, Explain, and Learn. Because obviously, not only are their default strategy is operating on a different level, but also their opponent's strategy is different. So not only is their offense different, but their defense is different and their exploits are different. So it's really the kind of thing that if you played against a recreational player the way that Ryan plays against Ryan, that might not actually serve you very well because you're kind of trying to trap the wrong kind, you're trying to use the wrong kind of traps. So did anyone get a chance to watch this entire video? Did you get a chance to catch a bit of it?
I watched the wrong one.
Oh,
Oh.
no.
I watched the 3-betting one.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too.
I actually watched it, and then actually I had before we did our own little shootout one-on-one match
Oh,
a month
yeah,
ago. This is one of the videos I did watch a bit of, so I had watched it before.
Right, great point, because we do this quarterly heads up tournament here at Rec Poker, and then the winner of each quarterly tournament gets to go on and play in Marec Madness, our March Madness bracket. And yeah, this would be a good thing to watch before that. I wish I had watched it before that. I got a bye in the first round and still got to go home early, so that was no fun. But I guess there's always the next quarter's game. Yeah, I mean, clearly. Well, was there anything in here, Eric, that you thought was transferable to, like, did it give you some thoughts on how you might adjust your own heads up play?
It was just interesting how Ryan talked through like the ranges of how wide, like, because you start with such wide ranges that you have to defend so wide against c-bets and barrels. So that was interesting to see. And as well as like there was 2 Ryans in there, but Ryan LaPlante was going for more of a GTO type of defense, whereas the other Ryan said that he wanted to take LaPlante out of his game tree that he's familiar with, so he was going to purposely go kind of crazy lines, and that was interesting approach to do it. So.
Yeah, I thought that, and it's really interesting to see how these 2 players kind of sized each other up and how they decided to approach it, because Ryan LaPlante referenced a couple times that Ryan Lang was probably a better live player, like a more experienced heads up live player. That it was actually a bit of an advantage for LaPlante that they weren't able to really square off conventionally live, because he thought that Lang would be able to benefit from that more than Ryan would. But it was really interesting that Lang seemed to give the impression that he felt like LaPlante really had his foundations nailed when it comes to like frequencies, sizings, those spots where your opponent can get out of line, the GTO decision tree, right? The game tree. So like you said, Eric, I thought that was really interesting that Lang was almost talking about how he was going to have to make Ryan uncomfortable with some of the places that he took him in the game tree, which is interesting because that makes me feel like Lang felt like he kind of had to up that variance a little, or that, because that's so they both really respect each other's game, I guess is what I'm saying. And then I saw some of the ways he did that was in sizing. In particular, Ryan was talking a few times about, that I didn't expect that sizing here, or I think he had a 10x open in one point early in the tournament, but he was limping and he was 2xing and he was 6xing and stuff like that. And it's fun to see him 10xing with some garbage hand and then flipping it over and showing Ryan, just to kind of, even though they're not really studying each other live, LaPlante put that comment out there that he was still kind of trolling him. So right. It's funny, it's funny how much of that is built into Lang's game, is like getting his opponent off balance, and little things like that. Like I could see how his strategy would be completely different live versus online, when you can't interact with your opponents like that. You can't kind of rattle their cage. Yeah. So I'd be interested to talk to both those players a little more.
I was listening to him he was just on Chasing Poker Greatness. And he was saying that he uses intuition a lot when he's playing live, like sense. A lot.
Yep. Like
he just gets a really good feel for if someone's nervous or if someone's excited or what, and he makes his reads based on that, and he trusts them. Like he'll get a feeling and he just trusts them every time.
Hmm.
So that's not just GTO there.
No. And I think that's a real skill, right? I mean, that intuition, because we have no idea what our brains are actually picking up, right? Like our brains are picking up all sorts of data that we're not really paying attention to. And sometimes that little voice in the back of your head saying, hey, do this, it's not showing its work. It's not like showing you why this is the right thing to do, but it's telling you, and like it's got a point. Um, how do you guys decide when to listen to that voice and when not to? Because we've all been in that spot where we're live, something's telling us, you know, this person, because ultimately poker, if you could just find out if they had it or not, that would be a big part of poker, right? Like are they bluffing or are they value betting? If you could just tell that alone, you would be a phenomenally successful poker player. So how, how do you guys balance that kind of, I want to trust my gut, but I also want to be like sure enough to proceed?
I used to rely on it completely, almost completely
Hmm.
in the old days of poker.
Hmm.
And then I started like really getting into the math and the GTO and all of that and started to rely on it not at all.
Mm,
So now I'm trying to come back to sort of a medium where I'm sort of using both. So we'll see how that pans out after when I get back to live play.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eric?
Yeah, so I try to observe it. So I'm trying to train it, but it's not to a point where I trust it enough that it's going to heavily influence my decisions. So I mean, I do try to, like, when the cards come out and the flop comes out, watch my opponent, not the cards, right? Because the
Mm,
cards are going to be there. So people's initial reaction. So I try to do that. And there have been times where I'm like, oh, I think I noticed something, but it's never been, I don't think I have it to the point where it's going to really, oh, GTO says I should call, but I saw this big tell. It's not to that point. Um, but I'm working on training things like that. I remember I remember being in I being at the table, and I wasn't in the hand, and so it's often easier to pick up tells
yes.
when you aren't in the hand, right? You're
Yeah.
more objective. You can, all right, you can more focus on the player, and you don't have your own cards to distract you. But I remember this guy made this huge over bet, and then he was like, I was like, it was too exaggerated. I was like, he's faking it. He's faking it.
Yeah.
He's nervous. And sure enough, the guy folded, and he was like, damn, I was trying to trick you to thinking I was like, it was too obvious.
That's funny. I've definitely seen that. I've done that too when I was first like getting into tells as a
Uh-huh.
teenager or however old I was. And I remember going into this casino in Halifax, and I'd read somewhere that like when people are making up stories, they look to their left, and when they're being honest, they look to their right or something. And so I remember the whole day like really like conspicuously like looking left every time I was trying to like tell a bluff story, and it was obviously like is the point where I was just like acting weird, like but like yeah, it's funny. I was like, you know, we out level ourselves with that kind of stuff all the time too, yeah. And so then how do you like, so good for you for kind of calibrating well in that moment and understanding that they were like throwing a false tell there, like a false flag. um I guess it's just like a leveling war, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe the next time they're going to do that because they know that you think they're faking it, so
Right,
it's
right,
actually going to
right.
be, you know, like I think that's kind of like academically fun to enjoy that decision tree, but practically speaking.
Yeah, practically speaking, what I've heard, and it seems reasonable, is like live tells should just be like tiebreakers,
Yeah.
right? So if you're like on the fence, then maybe you go to a live tell, but it shouldn't, like, if some sound fundamental theory says, you should fold here, then you probably should fold here. I mean, it'd be pretty hard for a tell to overcome that. It be, it tells usually aren't that reliable, because like I said, there could be false tells. It could be, some leveling wars going on.
Yep. And I think it's also like choosing the spot to look for that. I mean, not to look for it, but like when to weigh it. Like if you're,
hmm
it's in spots where your opponents are likely to be polarized, right? Like that's where it's going to be most helpful. It's not like that helpful if you're, if you if you can't beat a medium strength hand, then trying to figure out if they have a medium strength hand or a monster doesn't really matter. So it's like, and the other thing is like the baseline is so important for this kind of stuff too, right? Because they're like, are they stressed out because they've only got the second nuts and they don't want to lose the tournament, or are they stressed out because they've got the ace blocker and that's their only showdown, right? So it's another one of these, like, who is your opponent?
I know when I've been in live tournaments, it doesn't matter if I'm bluffing or I have the nuts, I think my heart still pounds.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that even in home games online, the heart starts
Yeah,
ticking either way.
it's exciting.
So,
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
yeah.
fun,
So
exciting. Yeah.
I don't think anyone could actually get a read off me by looking at my neck or my pulse, my heart thumping.
That's one that I worry about a little bit because I overheat easily, and so like I'm likely to have a little brow sweat or like a little pulse going pretty routinely. I guess that's to my benefit, as you're saying, Stu. If I'm always sweating, that's not really a tell.
Right.
So then this is another question, and that's just something else we want to talk about on that front. So then the other thing is, how do you guys decide when to like change gears a little bit in that way? Like there's this whole thing in the heads up match between the two Ryans here where, LaPlante gets shown this bluff and he's like, oh, well, I'm not gonna let that change my plan. I'm just gonna keep playing the way I'm playing. And he gets shown another bluff and he's like, no, that's okay. Like, I'm gonna keep doing my game. When I start adjusting, he'll counter adjust, and that'll be the time that I call, and he really had it. And that's something that I think we kind of struggle with a bit as recreational players too, which is like we get in these situations where it's like he can't always have it. When am I going to start adjusting to that? And is there like a magic number of hands for you guys, or is there just a sense of you let your own hand choose, or like Rob Washam's always talking about when he's playing heads up, sometimes he'll just limp the small blind exclusively, and other times he'll raise it 2.5 times all the time, and it won't have anything to do with hand strength. He's just like mixing it up a little bit to keep people on their toes. Do you guys have any way to kind of like decide what kind of rhythm to use for that?
Early in the match, I'll test different sizings to see how people react. So hopefully I won't play any of you heads up, but but what I'll do is I'll do a standard min raise, and then if they're folding a lot, like I'll stay with that. If they're calling it the right proper, I'll go to 2.5, see if that makes a difference. If there's a noticeable difference. Now, of course, it's going to be a small sample size, so there's going to be a lot of, I could, make an assumption that's incorrect, but I'll kind of test that. I'll do a couple limps, see if some players attack limps, some players will just limp behind. So I'll kind of do that early in the match, and then kind of choose one path and then go with that, and then see if that assumption, and then based on the results following that, see if that assumption was correct or not. So I'll do things like that, just kind of test, like, okay, how they respond to leads. So again, small sample size, but I'll try to do it early in the match, and then based on what I think is happening, then try to follow what I think would be the best plan, and then always adjust if my assumption was wrong.
Yeah, I think early in the match it's nice because stacks are deeper. You've got more room to make small bets and like test out, like you say, without committing a big part of your stack. And then once you get shorter, it's nice because you feel like you've got a little more info on your opponent. Plus, you've kind of muddied the water a little when it comes to, they're not really going to know how you like to play because you've tried all these different things. So that kind of puts them off the scent a little bit as well. I like that. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So then in a spot like this where where you're playing with someone, do you guys show bluffs when you're, is it opponent specific? Is it just, you just never show value hands or bluffs if you don't have to, or do you have a strategy for choosing when?
My default is not to show if I don't have to. If it goes to showdown and I have to show it, then I'll show it happily. But if I don't have to show a hand, either bluff or value, I don't show it.
I think that's a good default position. Like, it's just, it's private information that you don't have to make, like no one's forcing you to make it public. So you'd have to have a good reason to make it public, is the way I think about it. When I was younger, I showed all the time. And I think it was because it was like fun and collegial to like share. And I still do in the Rec Poker home games, but in the real games, I just, unless I'm being compelled to show, I don't show. Don't give it away.
Same.
Yeah. Now, I guess there's an argument for like, so when one of the exceptions you would make for that, like, I guess if you had an opponent like Ryan Lang is talking about here, like he likes to make people uncomfortable, that helps him play better poker against them. So if you did have an opportunity to like tilt somebody or to rattle them or get in their head or something, that's why people do it. But I always wonder, like, you're still just giving your opponent information though. Like they can just make a better assumption about you, what you're going to do next. Like, because we're all faced with this decision, right? So, okay, so we've shown the bluff. Now the next time, are we bluffing or are we not bluffing? And you haven't really confused your opponent by showing the bluff. Like, you could be bluffing or not bluffing. Are they going to adjust to think that you're bluffing now or to think that you're not bluffing now? Like, you're still kind of in a leveling war with them. It's just that you've given them information that they can use. If they look back on that previous hand, they can still say, oh, this is the sizing he likes on the flop when he's got a flush draw or something like that, which is just more information that they wouldn't have if you hadn't gone to showdown. So,
Right.
Yeah. And you've closed the loop on people. So interesting concept I learned is that humans don't like open loops. That means we don't like an open question. Like, should I have folded? Should I have called? You've closed the loop. I mean, even if you show the bluff, they know, oh, okay, I should have. I mean, so they know. But if you don't close that loop, it might be in the back of their mind. They're still thinking about that hand, right? Yeah. It's still occupying a part of their processes. So, I don't like closing that loop for them. Leave an open loop, and that might distract them. It might be small, but hey, small edges.
Oh yeah, man. Because we're at war at the table. I mean, everyone's got their own lines for what. Like, I mean, no one's gonna cheat, obviously, but everyone's got their own lines for like what's allowed and what's not allowed. And I think absolutely getting under your opponent's skin, especially if you can kill them with kindness, like that's my favorite way to do it for sure. Steamroll some jerks. But yeah, I do think, I mean, especially when it's in a spot that matters, if you're in a big tournament, you're there to have fun, but you're there to win the tournament too. And I think, speech play or putting people off their game or testing their ability to be patient, those are all skills in a poker game, as far as I'm concerned, for sure.
So a good example is Will Kassouf.
Yeah, exactly.
He tilts me just watching him on TV. I'm not even at the table with the dude.
Right. I sat next to him in the Irish Open.
Oh, right.
He was actually very quiet that day.
You protected your chips, I hope. You don't want him to steal your chips.
Yeah, he was probably working up some scam.
Yeah, and that's a good example actually, because he's doing, like, there's nothing he's doing that's illegal. Like, it's all perfectly within the boundaries of poker, but everybody hates him. He's like universally disliked. I wouldn't want him at my poker table, because he doesn't make the game more fun for the people that are there. And part of poker is being invited to the game ultimately. And I think we got to worry about players that stall a lot or engage in this kind of, like more aggressive or abrasive speech play, that kind of thing. I mean, they're kind of hurting themselves as much as they're hurting anybody else.
I wouldn't mind them at my table. I think, I mean, I'm a bit of an attention hog anyway. So, you're going to get the reporters and the cameras on the table.
Oh, that's
so-
true. That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good
Yeah, and
point.
it's more of and you can just look at it as a challenge to play someone like that. You've
Yeah.
got more information about them than they have about you,
It's true.
right?
It's true.
So
Guys, I have company here, so I have to go, but
Okay.
it's been fun.
Good chatting with you, Stu. See you soon, I hope.
bye, Stu.
Bye.
I mean, part of what annoyed me was his tanking. I mean, and I know TV
Right.
didn't show, but people, I guess, I mean, from what the players were saying, at least the tournament I saw, was like they were like, "Why are you tanking so long?" I mean, that would be like, I mean, that's purely just to tilt people, and that is like, come on.
Yeah. And that's another thing, like, that's another thing where it has a cost. It has a cost to the rest of the game, I think. Even though the people at the table, the player, but also the people at the table are kind of being advantaged a little bit. If you think about all the other tables getting more hands in and, being less likely to burst, I get that. But it's another one of those things where it's just not good for the game. It's not making the game better. So
somebody's gonna be like, "What? I don't want to play poker
Right.
tournaments. If this is what it is waiting
Right.
for this one guy to
Right.
fold 7 deuce. I mean, it's ridiculous."
But it's
Yeah.
it's the tragedy of the commons, right? Like, we're all in the situation where we have to make decisions that benefit the group over ourselves in order for the group to thrive. If we all just act in our own best interests, it will not survive. It's just not a perfect system in that way. It's pretty good. It's pretty well engineered so that people just following their own best interests, the system will survive. But it's not quite there with situations like this, because we live in an imperfect world with imperfect people, or so I hear. Reports. I hear reports that is the case. Yeah. So what do you guys do on the other side of that, when you've got someone at the player that's trying to get under your skin? Do you have any methods or techniques of kind of maintaining your composure, or sticking to your A game, or adapting, to an even higher level because you have like an enemy to combat or something like that? How do you handle that?
I mean, every night in our home game.
Yeah, they're getting you riled up in the home game, Pet Bet.
I don't know. I don't remember. It's been so long since I
Yeah.
played live poker.
Oh man,
It's
I
like-
know.
I think would be a good idea to even get up from the table and go and take a walk around the room and just do, or use some of Jason Sue's techniques of centering your breath.
Yes,
and-
I've been doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming back to the present. Repeating something I heard from another coach, which was, it's not about the stack you had, it's all about the stack you have.
Right.
So
One thing I love about poker is it really is a series of moments. That hand, there was a hand before and there'll be a hand afterwards, but they are completely irrelevant to what's happening in this hand right now. The stack you started this hand with, the cards in your hand right now, the people at the table as you are playing this hand. And so
it's tougher if your head's up, obviously.
yes, good point.
You
Good
can't
point.
take a walk around the room, but you can certainly do some breathing exercises and try to focus your energy to the present and get rid of the thoughts, those negative thoughts in your head.
And we said earlier not to stall, but that doesn't mean you can't just like use your time bank to gain a little composure too. Like, that's allowed. That time is yours. Take a few deep breaths, and especially if it's a hand that you're kind of just want to have a clear head in. Don't allow yourself to be rushed either. I think
Right.
that's important.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So one thing I do, I mean, so if I just remind myself, if if I suspect somebody's doing something purposely to try to tilt me, I just remind myself, well, if I allow that to happen, I'm playing into their game. So just right? I need to focus on staying present. And so, yeah, uh, things by Jason Su and Tommy Angelo have been really, really, really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Mum
Yep.
Poker.
Mum poker. Yeah, that's a challenge for me because I don't know.
I bet it is.
I do like to talk at the table. I like to find out about people and swap stories and stuff.
Well, no, actually, that's allowed by Mum Poker. You just the poker itself. You can talk about.
Good point. Good point.
Yes.
Good point. Yeah, it's the Carlos Welch monk at the table that I think I'd really struggle with. But when I do try and sort of mum up when I'm in a hand, and because I guess that's the other thing. We talked earlier today about like the false tells, and
Mhm.
that's the one thing where like William Kassouf, he does have it's true he's giving out a lot of information that other
Mhm.
people don't give out, but he's also, I think, developed a pretty good way of kind of like layering those traps. Like I think he's pretty good at actually doing the false tell speech play thing. Like I think he just has so much experience with reading how people respond to it that he's probably calibrated pretty well to the strong means weak, weak means strong kind of thing. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I have seen him quieter in hands where he's got a big hand, like trying, because he can't think about the speech play and what size to make his bets and all of that at the same time, right?
Yes, yes.
So
yes.
whether to re-raise, whether to call, or what bet size. So I have seen him quieter when he's got a big hand to play.
That's something
Unless
that
it's a hand that plays itself and he's trying to get the
Right.
person to.
that's
Yeah.
the thing that I've noticed is that people have like these things they're doing all the time, and then when they have to think seriously about a decision and focus on something, it like takes away the brain availability for that.
Mhm,
So chip shuffling is a big one of these.
mhm.
Or people that are like always moving their cards around the table or something like that. Anything, or even just like stemming with their fingers or stimming. Anytime they do anything compulsively, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have a good hand or a bad hand. But when they stop doing it, usually it means they're thinking carefully about something, and usually that has to do with a cusp case, sizing, and in between kind of a situation, and that can kind of help you eliminate either a monster or air from the
Have you ever watched yourself play? Have you ever watched
I
yourself on a stream play?
I haven't.
only the online stuff. I used to record my home gameplay for the
No, in live though. Have you ever seen yourself playing
never.
live?
once I did a sort of live play and learn with the Thinking Poker and the Just Hands guys. And have you,
Okay.
Kim?
Yeah, well, a
you
few
did
times
Solve for
because I've
Why,
got some
right?
streams there, but I also have streams of me playing at the Irish Open and at Run It Up Reno. There may be more, but
Cool.
I did notice that I would if I looked at my hand before it was my turn, this was early on, I would pull the hand slightly closer if I was going to play it.
Yeah. The old
And
it's more valuable. So
like
I
I
need
would
to
always cap it
protect-
no
yeah.
matter what. Like I
Uh-huh.
would just cap it because it was part of the routine,
Right,
right?
right.
I'd look, cap it, but I would just pull it in slightly if I was
because
and
they're more
cap it if I was
valuable.
going to
You
play
want
it.
them closer
So,
to you.
so then I
right.
just stopped looking at it until it was
Right.
my turn.
Right.
Like I just stopped,
Yeah.
like because okay, that's
Yeah, actually,
know.
I used to have a buddy, who played, and one of the early sessions we played, it was at a casino, and I watched him, and I was like, I could see, so he always had his hand, one of those cards on it, and he had it like really gripped tight. I was like, man, he's got a big hand, and sure enough, he had kings. He got drawn out by a gut shot, but still, it was just like, and then I noticed, like, I watched him in other hands, he had his hands on his cards more casually, but that one time he had kings, he had like a good, like a really
death grip
on it. And so I was like, I think you might want to watch that, because when you had kings, you had a different grip on your cards.
Yeah, I used to play with a guy east of me, and no word of a lie, if he was dealt a pocket pair, the cards would be right on top of each other. with a protector on top, but if he was dealt 2 unpaired cards, they would be slightly separated with the card protector on top. And it was so that when you could look under, it was just like easier for him to see.
They're the same value, so they got to go on top of each
I
other.
already need
They're
to see
different
them both,
values, so
and
they go
I
side by
want to be able
side.
to see them both at the same time. And I just like, man, once you get a tell like that on somebody, I mean, that just makes it a lot easier. But to him, like Kim's saying, every time he did it the same way. I look at my cards, I put them down, I put the chip protector on it, I like don't look at them, whatever. But like, we don't know what we're not doing the same. So get that game tape, get a buddy, and it's hard to do live. No one's gonna let you pull out a camera in a casino usually and stuff like that. But if you're playing a home game or something, definitely worth having a friend just like tripod that camera for the night or something and just see.
Yeah.
Or get on a bunch of live streams.
Or just get on a bunch of live streams like the Poker Friends Forever.
Yeah, one of the things that's is really important for people when they're playing live, instead of getting on your phone and tweeting out your stuff and doing all that, is watch every hand, because you can so pick up that stuff in the recreational level of play. You play some of the bigger events and people are generally, as they get better players, people are better at hiding those things, but it's amazing what you'll pick up. So don't just watch when you have a hand you're going to play, just watch all the time. Right?
Yeah, definitely. One thing I have yet to balance is I do like to note the hands I play. So it's like I haven't optimized the system where I can take notes on the hands I play and still like pay attention to what's the next hand that's going on. So I need more practice on.
What are you using to
notes.
track your notes? Because like a lot of people use Evernote or.
I used I think it's called Color Note or something on my.
Ooh,
yeah,
I like those.
I just and I just downloaded it, and this is within the last year, a poker specific keyboard.
Yeah.
So I haven't played live since I downloaded that. So that's my next live session.
Nice.
I'm gonna try that out.
Kim, is that an app or just the keyboard?
It's a keyboard. It's
Awesome.
an app as well, but it's a keyboard, hand history keyboard.
I can see that being a real time.
It's that app right there in the middle. You can see that.
Okay. Cool.
Hand history keyboard.
Hand history keyboard.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll check that out. I'm gonna make a little note. Because I do think
Fudge, I just folded pocket aces because I
Oh,
timed
what?
out because I was doing that, and
Oh,
it was raised and a re-raise.
Dude,
Oh
Kim,
my
no.
God!
Well,
Oops.
That was
One
not
of
as,
us-
as important as showing us the keyboard.
I know.
no.
I know.
Well, I
The thing with GG is their alarm is just a little ding,
Ugh.
ding. Like you don't even notice it with all the noise that's going on at the table.
Are you
It just gives you a
playing?
little ding.
Are you on a desktop? Are you playing
Yeah.
on a desktop?
No, but I have a monitor.
Oh, okay. Because you might. You're on a laptop.
Yeah.
You might be able to adjust the sound file that plays. I know it's too late for you now, but I went in and reconfigured. all
Oh, and
my
I would have
different-
had aces full.
Oh no. Yeah, I
And
don't
the
know if
guy's
I'd be
going all
laughing.
in. The guy's going all in, and the guy goes all in on
Ah.
the river.
I don't know if I would be laughing.
Oh.
I'd be crying if that was me.
Well, Eric and I are going to make some really keen notes with our new keyboard. And
Okay, great.
that's going to we're going to take over the world with our
Make
new
it all
notes.
worthwhile.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is you can't see.
Oh,
this-
yeah. No,
my
you
stupid
got the...
background is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
So that's what I have. So again, I haven't since I've downloaded it. I haven't played live.
I've
So
played live. Yeah. Well, it'll
All
be
right,
good.
I'm gonna have to do some breath recentering.
yeah,
I think you
yeah,
should listen to the
yes.
Jason Sue podcast and regain your center.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh no.
I'll just cry right now.
Get it
Oh,
out.
God.
Get it out.
Quad fours is the only hand that would have beat me, and the guy was 3-betting. I don't think he had pocket fours.
Unlikely. Maybe out of the small blind.
No, it was under the gun raise in a middle position, 3-bet,
Yeah. He
and
did.
then I timed out with aces.
Well, you
Like-
got that one out of the way early in the tournament.
yeah.
Congratulations.
And now I have no time bank.
I literally went through and I used to play on like 6 or 7 different sites. I went through and I changed all the sound files to the same alarms that I use on PokerStars just because it was confusing as hell having all these different
Oh
tables.
man, I wouldn't have the first clue how to do that.
Yeah, it's I've spent a lifetime being the person who's really not tech savvy at all. I'm like the one who everyone makes fun of for not being able to get their phone to work. But for some reason, some of this poker software, maybe it's just that I like it and spend time on it.
Because you're motivated.
I'm sure that's exactly what it is. But if my friends from high school knew that I was involved in the technical running of a website, there would be a lot of laughter going on. That doesn't really compute. Pen and paper, Jim. So, getting back to the LPP video here, there was a lot of talk about like GTO versus exploitative play. There was a lot of talk about like different sizing and tendencies. There was a spot where Ryan LaPlante folded to an extremely small bet. And it turned out that it was a bluff from Ryan Lang. I think LaPlante folded pocket twos or something, which was a good fold given the action and everything.
Yeah, I remember that one.
But I really liked that Ryan Lang was using that bet size for the bluff because I think the pot was over 1,000, and the bet size, he was out of position and he put out like 175.
Yeah, it was like a
that.
10th or a 15%. Or
yeah,
15%. Yeah.
Which is amazing when I don't remember. You have to have a really bad hand to make that profitable because people need to be folding garbage that beats you, right? And that's what I thought made it such a cool play, because I think if he has a better hand, that's not a good play, because the hands that fold he's already beating. But he had like 7 high or something like that, and he's like, if I can get 9 high to fold, this is a profitable play. So I really got a kick out of that. I thought that was exactly the kind of way we should be thinking about sizing. We should be thinking about sizing as, I mean, we start in this GTO vacuum, and then we should think about, we actually have the chance to choose what portions of our opponent's range will continue and how by the sizes that we choose. So if you really want to affect a certain part of your opponent's range, you can do that with your sizing. It's just, it has to be worth it. It has to be worth it. You have to have a good reason to do it. And I just don't see a lot of people doing those like micro bluffs like that because it takes the right opponent too, right? So hats off to Ryan for that. Well, we're coming up at the top of the hour. I know we got started a little late because we had so much fun talking about all this other fun stuff that's going on at Rec Poker right now. But is there anything else we should cover? I'd love to see more of these. Ryan LaPlante just talking through his action. I hope Andrew Feist has a couple more of these lined up for the next few months of learning with partners. And I think, what else? If anyone wants a discount code for all the membership sites that we support, you can go to rec.poker/resources and get a little discount there and help us out. Other than that, I just want to thank Ryan LaPlante and LPP, Eric and Kim and Stu for coming out today and helping us out with this, and another great chat. And we'll just see everybody another time soon. Thanks, everybody. Good luck, Kim. Knock him dead today.